Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So, in this class, I would like to, you know, discuss about T.S. Eliot. I mean, his biography. T.S. Eliot. Do you know the full form of his name? What do T and S stand for? T.S. Eliot. Any idea? Anyone? T.S. T for
Oh, I think Thomas Sen.
Thomas. T for Thomas and S for
First,
Stearns. Thomas Stearns Eliot. So he was an American English poet. He is also uh, known as a playwright, that is a dramatist, literary critic, and editor. Okay, let me repeat. He was an American English poet, playwright, literary critic, and editor. He was born in 1888. Of course, his nationality was American, and he died at the age of 76. Okay, so he was born in St. Louis, Missouri, United States. In fact, he is mostly famous as a poet. Yes, of course, he also wrote plays. He also, wrote dramas. But all around the world, we know him mostly as a poet. All right, and his wife was Valerie Eliot. I should say the first wife. His first wife was Valerie Eliot, and his
first,
second, yes,
didn't he write any novel?
no, he did not. He did not.
Okay, thank you.
And his second wife was Vivian. Okay, Ziad is trying to get in. Zannatul Naim. All right. So let me continue. So as I was saying, he married
Sir,
twice.
his first wife.
Valerie Elliott, and his second wife was Vivian Haywood. All right. Okay. His father was Henry Ware Elliott, and his mother's name was Charlotte Champ Stans. And he had a brother, and he did not have any children. T.S. Eliot did not have any children. He died on January 4, 1965, and he died in England. You must remember he was an American citizen, but he died in England. Okay, this is a very brief introduction. Now let's move on to a broader description about his life. So Thomas Stearns Eliot, popularly known as T.S. Eliot. So he is considered as the leader of the modernist movement in poetry. He is the pioneer in the modernist movement in poetry. Why? Because Many of the established British poets of that time followed him. They were inspired, influenced by him, by his poetry. In fact, T.S. Eliot, he was so passionate, you know, so passionate about literature from his childhood, from his early childhood. In fact,
Sir,
yes, Naim.
yes, sir. Actually, as far I know, Ezra Pound is considered as the pioneer of modernist poetry. I think.
Uh, yes, Ezra Pound was also there. He was also, I mean, Ezra Pound was also a supporter. Okay, acted as a supporter. So Eliot was the most influential figure. Ezra, of course, Ezra Pound was also there, acting as a companion, as a supporter. We can also say that they both acted as the pioneers in the modernist poetry movement. You can say Ezra Pound was a major figure. All right, an important figure at that time. Okay, let me continue now. So, actually, the love for literature, love for poetry, you know, and all, love for drama, all these started when he was a child. Indeed, he inherited, he got, he got all these, passionate feelings about literature from his mother. His mother also had literary skill. Okay, his mother also used to read books. His mother would write poetry. So Eliot was much influenced by her, sorry, by his mother.
Why, sir?
Hello.
Why he influenced by his mother?
I have already told you, because her mother loved literature. Her mother loved to write. Okay,
Okay,
so he
I got
was influenced.
you. Okay, sure.
Okay, then then his childhood, in his childhood, we see that as he was the youngest of his parents, youngest son of his parents, so of course he was much loved. He was more loved, okay, compared to the other siblings. He didn't have many friends during his lifetime, because he was much involved in reading books. He was an avid reader. He loved to read. Okay. In his childhood, he used to read, children's books. His first poems.
Sir, can you repeat it again?
Hello, Naim.
Yes. Sir, can
Okay.
you repeat it again?
During his childhood, he
No, sir.
used
Sir,
to
first one.
read.
I
He
don't understand any topic about this course, sir.
what should I repeat?
Sir, at the first class started, that repeat it again.
I started with T.S. Eliot's life. T.S. Eliot's life. Okay. Now
Sir,
I
can you
am
explain, sir?
discussing
I don't.
T.S. Eliot's life. Now discussing about his childhood. Okay. Now he did not have many friends. T.S. Eliot did not have many friends when he was a child because he was not passing much time with friends or some or with making friends, uh, making friendship with others. He was busy with his reading. He used to read books. Then his first poems, he wrote his first poems at the age of 14, only when he was a child, 14 years old. He wrote his first poems, and actually he was inspired by Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Okay, there's a book. It's a famous book, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. So this book was written by Edward Fitzgerald.
Sir,
Actually,
can I
Edward
say that
Fitzgerald.
that common books, the name of the book or the poem?
The name of the book is Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, and it was actually translated. I mean, the book is a collection of translated poems. Okay, and who translated? Edward Fitzgerald. Edward Fitzgerald. He translated Omar Khayyam's poems. You know Omar Khayyam. There was a poet, Persian poet,
Who translate?
translated Edward Fitzgerald. Edward Fitzgerald
Sir,
translated
could you
Omar.
please could you please write spelling of the translator?
Name of the translator is Edward
Yes, sir.
Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald. Okay.
Sir, could you please write in of the
What
translator?
spelling? Do you want the spelling?
Yes, sir, spelling.
FIT.
Poem's name. The first poem name of T.S. Eliot.
Hello. I can't hear you. Hello.
Hello, sir. Assalamualaikum.
Yes. Hello. Who?
Sir,
I mean, I can hear Suki's voice. Your voice is also breaking, Anis. Hello.
hello,
Hello.
hello.
Yes,
Sir,
I can
Sir,
hear
sir,
you
she
now.
she
Omar Coin
said,
is firstly translated by our national vet Kazi Nazrul Islam. Hello,
Yes. Go on, Anis.
sir. Omar Coin is firstly translated by our national vet Kazi Nazrul Islam. Right?
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Sir, Suki said that
Hmm.
his first poem name
His first poem's name
names
is A Fable.
spelling, sir. She want to know spelling about this poem.
Spelling. His first poem was A Fable for Feasters. Okay. A Fable for Feasters. I'm going to give it in the chat box. And He was inspired by Edward Fitzgerald's Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Look at the chat box. T.S. Eliot's first poem was A Fable for Feasters. Okay. And T.S. Eliot, when he read Edward Fitzgerald's book, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, he was deeply influenced, deeply moved by it. All right. So as Anis is saying that our national poet Qazi Nazrul Islam, he also translated Omar Khayyam's poems, right, Anis? Hello, Anis. Anis, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, it's okay. Any poet or any person can translate Omar Khayyam's poems, no problem. Edward Fitzgerald,
But firstly translated in Bengali, our national poet Kazi Nazrul Islam.
in Bangla, he translated
Yes, sir.
first. No problem. In any country, anyone, any person can translate, right? So Edward Fitzgerald, he was an English poet. He also translated Omar Khayyam's poems. These poems are actually, four-liners. Every poem contains how many lines? Only 4 lines. All right. As you can see, sometimes on Facebook, I post my poems, and every poem contains 10 lines. My every poem contains 10 lines. So Omar Khayyam's poems contain 4 lines. Every poem, there are only 4 lines. Okay. Now, actually, in 1905,
Excuse me, sir, I have a question.
yes, what question?
Sir, T.S. Eliot write his first poem in English. So who are the translator? Uh, in which language he translate his first poem?
Who? I didn't understand. Can you repeat?
Sir, T.S. Eliot first poem translated in which language? The first translator
In English?
in English to English translate.
No. Can you clarify? Can you just write down? I am not clearly listening. Can you write in the chat box the question?
Sir, she thought that T.S. Eliot translated a poem. That is his first poem. Actually, it was not translated. He himself wrote that poem, I think, right?
What Suki is trying to say that T.S. Eliot translated a poem.
স্যার আমি বলতেছি টি.এস. এলিয়ট কবিতাটা লিখেছে ইংলিশে, তাহলে যে ফার্স্ট ট্রান্সলেশন করেছে সে কোন ভাষায় ট্রান্সলেট করছে কবিতাটি, এটাই বলতে চেয়েছি।
No, no, I did not say anything about T.S. Eliot's poetry translation. Okay. I said Edward Fitzgerald translated Omar Khayyam's poetry. Do you understand, Suki?
স্যার এটা দ্বারা ও কি ট্রান্সলেট করার জন্য ইনফ্লুয়েন্স হয়েছে নাকি যে কবিতা লেখার জন্য ইনফ্লুয়েন্স হয়েছিল?
Edward Fitzgerald translated, there was a poet, Edward Fitzgerald, he translated Omar Khayyam's poems. Okay. Then T.S. Eliot read this book, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, this book. T.S. Eliot read this book. Then T.S. Eliot was inspired by this book. He loved the poems of Omar Khayyam. Okay,
Okay.
so T.S. Eliot did not translate. Now, do you understand?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Okay.
I quite understood.
Then, in 1905, uh, actually, T.S. Eliot's talent about writing started to flourish, started to bloom. And his poetry, especially I should say his poems, were printed in the Harvard Advocate for many times. The Harvard Advocate. What is the Harvard Advocate? I am sharing this in the chat box. Harvard Advocate, a literary magazine, a literary magazine in Harvard University. Okay, so I should say that in 1906 he was enrolled as a student of philosophy at Harvard University in 1906. You can look at the sentence in the chat box I have shared there. So he was a student of philosophy in Harvard University. Now, T.S. Eliot, he actually settled down in Oxford. I told you earlier that he was an American citizen, but he settled down in Oxford, England. Why? Why did he go to England to settle down? Because he met many poets and writers. There were many poets and writers in London. So he was, feeling so easy, so comfortable talking to them, sharing ideas. And in Bangla we call it adda. In English it's called rodivu. In Bangla we call it adda. So used to he I mean T.S. Eliot used to have rendezvous, so many get-togethers with other uh, emerging and also notable poets and writers. Uh, for example, Ezra Pound, as Naeem has already mentioned his name. Ezra Pound was also there. So, who was Ezra Pound? American poet and critic. Okay, American poet and critic Ezra Pound. So
Sir, what is the meaning of Ezra Pound?
Ezra Pound,
Means
Ezra Pound was a poet.
a
So
poet means.
he was also there, and Ezra Pound, he actually realized that T.S. Eliot was, was much talented, and Ezra Pound introduced T.S. Eliot to many other poets, writers, artists, and intellectual persons in London. Ezra Pound also had connections, relationships with some publishers, some well-known publishers. So Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot, they actually became friends, and Ezra Pound helped T.S. Eliot to publish his works. You know, he gave him suggestions. Okay, you can publish your poems here. You can submit your poems in that magazine. You can give your poems to me. I can look at them. I can edit them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ezra Pound was
Yes, yes.
helping him, helping T.S. Eliot. So in 1915, T.S. Eliot published his poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. It's a poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. I am writing it in the chat box. This is the name of the poem. And yes, he continued his writing, and his PhD dissertation, that means his PhD thesis, was on knowledge and experience in the philosophy of F.H. Bradley. Okay, he completed his PhD from Harvard University, and in 1927 he became a British citizen. You know, he was an American citizen. However, he became a British citizen also. So he had, you know, dual or double citizenship. He became a British citizen in 1927. So what are his major works? I mean, what are his most famous works? Number one is The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, and number two is The Wasteland. I'm writing it in the message in the chat box. You can have a look at it. This is The Wasteland. Okay, it's a book, of course, a book of poetry. And he also wrote some other books. Four Quarters. It's a book. Uh, then Burnt Down, East Coker, The Dry Salvages. These are poems, names of poems. So he received the Nobel Prize in Literature. Did you know that? Did you know that he received the Nobel Prize in Literature? I have added it to the chat box. Yes, in 1948. Okay, he became a Nobel laureate. He also received, of course, some other esteemed awards, prizes. So his personal life, I'm going to take 5 more minutes, not more than that. In 1915, he married Vivian Haywood. She was also a writer. Actually, Vivian Haywood was a British citizen. So perhaps he married her so that T.S. Eliot may remain in England. Uh, Moreover, Vivian's long list of, their life was not, their married life was not a happy one. They were not happily married because his wife Vivian was ill, was sick most of the time, especially she did not have mental balance. So their relationship became worse. Their relationship was not a good one. In 1933, they got separated. I mean, uh, T.S. Eliot divorced her
স্যার হয়েন
in 1933, and Vivian's brother sent her to a to a lunatic asylum, means a mental hospital. T.S. Eliot's wife Vivian was sent to a mental hospital. In 1957, Eliot married Valerie Fletcher, his second marriage. Actually, she was his secretary. She was his secretary, uh, and they remained married till his death, till Eliot's death in 1965. So they were happily married. Okay, so that's it. I mean, this is a very short introduction about T.S. Eliot, about his life, his works. So you must remember he was an American citizen. Then he moved to England, became a British
ব্রিটিশ
citizen. British citizen. Why? Because he loved England. He saw, he found many writers, talented writers, poets in England. So he was inspired by them. They were also inspired by him, especially Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound became his, closest friend. Ezra Pound also edited some of his famous poems, writings. Ezra Pound gave him suggestions. I mean, Ezra Pound, English poet from England. So he gave him suggestions. Okay, you can add some words here. You should cut some words here. Okay, in this poem, the